Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. Today marks the 50th anniversary of one of the most terrible periods in the history of independent India. Today marks the day when the war with China broke out in 1962. And that was a war that India lost, and lost rather badly. And the shock of that and the impact of that has in many ways continued to haunt us all the way through till the present date. So today on The Big Fight, we are, for starters, going to look back at 1962, try to understand what exactly did happen, why did things go so wrong, and what could we perhaps have done a little differently. And then, perhaps more importantly, let's come back to today, let's come back to 2012, and let's ask ourselves the question, have we learned the relevant lessons? Could it happen again? Are we prepared now? Is there ever likely to be a war again? And if there was to be one, what would happen? So that's roughly the agenda, and we have an absolutely fantastic panel joining us. Let me start off by welcoming, and it's a pleasure and an honor to have you with us on the show, Brigadier R. Jatar, who was a major with the 13th Kumaon Regiment in 1962. He fought at Rezangla in Ladakh. So thank you so much, Brigadier Jatar, for joining us, and perhaps the audience could give him a special round of applause. Also joining us, Air Marshal Fali Major, who was a former Chief of the Indian Air Force. It's great to have you with us, sir. Mr. Ronen Sen, former Indian Ambassador to the United States, who's also, of course, been keeping a close eye on everything that's happening elsewhere. Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal was a former commander of the Northern Forces. It's wonderful that you could join us. Mr. Vinod Grover, former Secretary of the MEA, who's also a member of the Prime Minister's National Security Advisory Council. It's great to have you with us as well. Colonel Anand Thale has written the official history of the 1962 India-China conflict, co-authored it, so you really will be able to tell us what happened.
Yes.
And Professor Srikant Kondapalli, Professor in Chinese Studies, can perhaps help us understand what the Chinese intentions were in 1962 and what they are right now. Colonel Thale, why don't I start with you, seeing as you did co-author the official history. 50 years ago is when the Chinese invasion, in a sense, began, and it was one of the worst periods in independent India's history. What, to your mind, really went wrong?
We tend to look at it as a terrible military disaster, as it was and came to be. But if you analyze it properly, you realize that it was not a major military disaster in Ladakh and northern areas. Really speaking, it was only debacle at Sela in Arunachal Pradesh that gave it that, even today when we think of it. So, strictly
but sir, that
speaking,
was bad enough. I mean, given what happened in Arunachal Pradesh, if there was a possibility the Chinese could have kept coming, there was a possibility they could have held, or do you think the lines would have got too extended for them?
No, the lines were too extended. The last people who came there, essentially what happened in 62 in Arunachal Pradesh, then NIFA, was panic set in. Once a panic sets in, all the command and control was lost, everybody for himself, and people just went back without fighting. So essentially, it was a military leadership failure in Arunachal Pradesh.
Brigadier Jatar, as somebody who was there, share some of your memories of that, sir. Ladakh was not as badly affected. It wasn't a disaster the way it was in Arunachal Pradesh, but perhaps you could share some of your thoughts of what happened.
I was at a place called Magar Hill, which is adjoining the feature of Rezangla, both at a height of something like 17,500 feet. And we were part of the 13th Kumaon, and 13th Kumaon was part of the 114 Infantry Brigade, commanded by then Brigadier Raina, who later on became the Army Chief. And well, before the Ladakh, the Chushul operations came into being, that is where Magar Hill and Rezangla were, and Gurung Hill on our left. Before we really came into picture, the platoon positions and company positions which are ahead of us, they were rolled up by the Chinese because they were so isolated from each other. I mean, some of the posts like Hot Springs and Galwan were something like hundreds of miles away from the neighboring posts. So really, what chance did they have? But Chushul was one place where we thought we could give a fight. That's the planning from our side. And as has recently come out, our army, then Army Commander, General Daulat Singh, moved 2 battalions, including 13 Kumaon, in the nick of time to Shul. And so there's the first state Gurkhas and 13 Kumaon. I think we gave them a good fight, which
Right.
is quite well known by now.
Whenever we talk about what happened 50 years ago and try and figure out what went wrong, a lot is said about failure of military leadership, failure of political leadership, inadequate equipment, poor training. Which of those do you think was the most correct?
I think military defeat, it was a defeat, you can call it, but it was not a debacle, it was not a rout by any chance. It was a well-led defensive position, and it was you can say a failure that way. The defeat was because we were outnumbered and we are not fully acclimatized. The Chinese had been there for months and years earlier, and we had just been moved in October, early October. So I had no real time to acclimatize ourselves fully. Nor were we fully equipped. Now, if you talk about Razangla, where C Company of 13 Kumaon was there and put up a very, very gallant fight, what did they have? They didn't have MMGs, they didn't have mortars, they had mortars but no artillery, artillery couldn't reach there, they didn't have wire. So Razangla was not considered a ground of tactical importance at that time, whereas the position I was holding was, and Gurung Hill were grounds of tactical importance. We have given a little more priority.
Okay.
And so I would not say that, except for defense stores, you asked about arms and ammunition, I don't think we are so badly off. Perhaps we didn't have self-loading rifles at that time, but we had bolt-action rifles. And we had no major complaints about equipment also. That is the honest admission.
Air Marshal Fali Major, I'm sure every single person in the Indian Defence Forces has lived with the memories and perhaps the scars of 1962 and has also thought back of what happened and what we perhaps could have done differently.
Well, 1962 was a war fought between two unequals, because on our side, neither were we prepared nor equipped, nor had the strategic thought that this would ever happen. But over the years, I think we've got over that, and the reasons are difficult to explain. I wouldn't say it was complacency on our part, neither would I say that it was thrust upon us. It would be, just guessing as to why that debacle took place in 1962. There are hundreds of reasons, and, each one has his own opinion about it.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.